All right, we're going to get started here. Josh Rickard works as a solutions engineer for PhishMe Inc. Rickard, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah.
Josh Rickard works as a solution engineer for PhishMe Inc. Josh's primary focus is in Windows security and PowerShell automation. Prior to joining PhishMe, Josh was a security analyst at the University of Missouri-Columbia, where he focused on incident response, vulnerability management, security automation, and fighting phishing on an enterprise level. Josh currently holds both a JIAC certified Windows security administrator and a JIAC certified forensic analyst from SANS. He is also a director of the Central Missouri InfraGard Member Alliance and is active within the security community in Central Missouri. You can follow Josh on Twitter at MSDadministrator, or through his blog, msadministrator.com, which is focused on security, Windows systems administration, and PowerShell.
Thank you. Didn't mean to make it that long, but thank you. I appreciate it. How's everybody? Can you hear me? Do I need to? Is this good? About right there? All right. My name is Josh Rickard, like you said. I am kind of a Missouri native, so all of you, I guess, well, most of you are from around here. Live in Columbia, and I used to work, as he said, to the University of Missouri. Now I'm with PhishMe because of, and I'll explain kind of where I'm at with that. But today we're going to talk about PowerShell Phishing Response Toolkit. I call it PPR Tee for short. Basically came out of necessity for day-to-day operations that I had to deal with. So I am not as funny as Ben 10 or, you know, some of the other guys. So this might be a little dry. I'm just going to tell you that. Oh. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, that's real. You lose it? Yeah. Yeah, I don't think PowerPoint likes that. Sorry about all the technical difficulties. It seems to follow me, so. Okay. Well, it may crash again. So, love Office 2016. It's awesome. I have a BS in information systems, whatever. Yeah. I've only actually been in IT for about 5 years. Before that, I just kind of started school late, all that. I was kind of doing odd-end jobs, all that stuff. I just kind of fell into it. My wife just forced me to really go back to school. So, did that. I'm thankful. Basically, I was a sysadmin or a system support analyst to a system administrator, all the way to incident response. I basically worked with a team of people at the university system. Part of my responsibilities were vulnerability management. So that was kind of just in my lap as an IR person. As well as antivirus management at a large scale for the entire kind of university. And no one else gave a crap, it seemed, not at the university, just in general, about phishing. You know, we had tons of it, and every organization sees it left and right. I mean, it's always there. As he kind of mentioned, I have a GCWN, if certs don't really matter, but it's a good thing to have. I delve into memory forensics a little bit, and I love anything to do with Windows. So that's kind of just a little background about myself. Enough of that. Let's get back to the cool stuff. You all can hear me, correct? Right? Okay. So part one, basically, this kind of came about because of a couple reasons. The first part was we were hit with massive phishing attacks, and we were just tired of users always clicking on links and compromised accounts, and everyone deals with that, right? Raise your hand. Yep. Yeah. All right. And so I was sitting at lunch with a friend, and I was, damn it. Why do I always have to ask users to forward as an attachment back to me so I can get the original details? I can, do some more investigation around that phishing attempt. So what I kind of did is I built my own Outlook add-in for Outlook, and so it allowed people to actually just forward those phishing emails as an attachment, kind of packaged up for me, and it was a one-click solution. It was kind of an easy win. So this is kind of what it looked like. I named it Fish Reporter, and I'll explain why that's relevant here in the next slide. So the second part was, it was successful. The last one was good. We deployed it. We were receiving tons of phishing emails, but what do we do with this stuff now? And that's kind of where PPR Tee is going to come in. So I was sick of actually, we would receive those messages and we'd have to notify all those hosting providers because that was just kind of our procedure. And a lot of people don't because it's time consuming and they don't want to do it. So, part of PPR Tee is to do an automatic notification, and I'll show you all of that. It'll find their registered abuse contact information and send them an email saying, hey, knock this off. We want you to continue, we want you to shut it down as soon as possible because we have dispersed employees all across the globe and you can do one-off fixes left and right, but you need to keep going. You need to keep practicing that takedown notices or those notifications because really that's how we're going to stop it. It's always kind of a whack-a-mole job. I'm not going to say that it's a one-time fix. We're always going to see it, but doing nothing is probably the worst thing you can do because mostly, in my opinion, they're just going to continue attacking you because they know that you're not doing anything about it. So, both of these, kind of ideas came up. This isn't, I hate talking about myself. I'm not that type of person, but, I was told by my wife I should mention it because it's kind of cool. I created the Outlook add-in, and then I created PPR Tee and basically, got offered a job at PhishMe. Because of those solutions, and now I'm a solutions engineer there. I just kind of work on coming up with crazy shit to solve crazy problems, which is fun, and I get to travel and come to conferences and all that, so pretty cool. But I live in Columbia, I live at home, I work at home, I live at home and work at home. It's weird. I don't know if anyone else work remotely? Yeah? Yeah, so yeah. Yeah, it's its own challenges. So, we all see phishing emails like these, right? Like the, online banking notification, blah, blah, blah. And they just have this, kind of obfuscated link right there. That stuff is, we're very, very common. And, this may be a little bit more enterprise-ish than what I was dealing with from a day-to-day in higher education. But we saw a lot of this as well, due to your quota limits and all that, click here to upgrade, and they're just still that same free hosting site. I think that one's, Webudo. I don't even know how to pronounce it, but they're just the free ones that are out there. WebEx, Weebly, all those type of, websites. Then, you really want to kind of just stop those, but then you have something a little bit more, I guess, I wouldn't say it's advanced, but it's, they're kind of trying to, they're on this next step to do spear phishing almost. They're trying to say, hey, the security team, blah, blah, blah. They'll start using your footers and your headers. They'll start using your subjects and everything. And so we just need to stop it, basically, nip it in the bud is really what we need to do. There's an example. See, this one is actually unique. It's a redirect to a base64 encoded URL. And I'll show you what PPR Tee can do for those as well. So the pain points that we have, basically we have users report potential malicious emails, but what the hell do we do with them? We can't look at them all. There's no way. I mean, unless you have 40 people that just do that, you get so many. Especially when you're talking 1,000 unique every week or every day. I mean, and it's hard. It's a hard thing to battle. So, really, in IR, that's the last thing you want to do. You want to go actually work on some investigations and actually do your job. And this is kind of that side after effect. At least it was in my opinion. So we have to try to battle those compromised accounts. Those compromised accounts are just leading to other compromised accounts. They're sticking around. If you looked at your Exchange logs, if you looked at your overall, just everything that you have in your environment, I can guarantee you see an IP that is logged into that account about 6 months ago, and it's just sitting there waiting. And that's just the nature of it. Like, we saw it all the time. That'll be something I'll talk about at the end here, but there's some ideas that are being brewed up for PPRT that'll be in version 2. I could not get it done before this, so I apologize, but I'll talk about it here in a little bit. So how many of you do incident response? Day to day, like, is it a full-time job? Yeah? IR is a weird, it's a great place to be because you get to investigate, you get to, get down in the weeds if you like that type of stuff. It's great, but we don't have time, especially at a very, very large organization that doesn't have, a team of 10 people dedicated to incident response. If it's just 1 or 2, it's really a lot of work. So, how many of you actually do response, like abuse response? So you have, abuse, phishing, spam at whatever your company is, .com or .org or whatever. How many of you actually do anything with those messages right now on a database? Okay. Daily basis is what I meant. All right. Okay. So when I'll ask this question, then I have a follow-up. But how many of you send takedown notices? So if someone's spoofing one of your sites, you're basically they make a straight copy of your main hosting or your main web page. Do you send those? Do you have to go to lawyers? Do you have to, do you do anything about those? Does that happen? You can yell out, like, okay. One of the big things is these takedown notices. You want to get rid of them as soon as possible because the longer you leave these phishing URLs up, you have more users, especially ones that are traveling abroad, that if you don't have the software, the technology to buy the fanciest, host firewalls that you can update remotely, in China, why they're visiting there for sales or whatever. I mean, that is extremely difficult. And so now they're still receiving those in their inbox. Yes, there's some proactiveness that you can have, with removing mail from your Exchange mailboxes. But, in my experience, most Exchange administrators, sorry if any of you are Exchange administrators, they don't like you to touch Exchange at all. And I understand that. I mean, why? Like, it is the number one thing in front of every user's face that you're going to hear the loudest noise about. You're going to hear someone says Sally or whatever is going to say, God, my Exchange crashed today, or something happened, or I can't get to my email. That Exchange admin is going to be the number one person to get yelled at by someone at the C level, and you don't want that. So I understand why. So this is kind of an explanation of phishing response process that I did. This can vary based on organization. It really all just kind of depends. But let me know if you can interject and just say, no, not on that one or whatnot. But on the first one, we have abuse, spam phishing mailbox. We receive that potential malicious email, right? All right. So we have to figure out how we get that. Again, I kind of did a whole reporter button, but a lot of people just forward it in. They'll forward it into service desk, or they'll forward it into their remedy, or whatever it is. Their ticketing system. Some people just leave them and just we'll check on it when we need to, and that's fine. Not really, but it's fine. So you check and verify that the malicious site is still alive. I usually just have Kali or, some other VM just set up, and I'll just kind of, before PPRT, I would, basically just check and see if it's alive. If it's alive, then I'll send a notification. If it isn't, I don't care. It's done. One thing that you miss is that you have a lot of historical data there, and I'll talk about that here in a minute as well. But you also have all the attachments. We're seeing ransomware everywhere. Attachments, macros, Word doc. Whoever's using 2003 Word and you have macros enabled, you're screwed. Sorry, but what you can do is you hash those attachments. Just check them against VirusTotal. It's pretty easy. It's a huge VirusTotal, malwares. I think it's like malware.com. There's tons of them out there. Just check them against a database because why not? It's one extra little step. So the next step, if it is live, we would go to whois.domaintools.com or some other website, some script, whatever that you have of Whois. And find their registered or whatever it lists as the contact for Facebook or for Twitter or whatever. And you would just draft up an email and basically send the message. Then you have other lists. You have your proxies. You have your web filtering, you have your firewalls, whatever you want to, whatever you want. But you have all these, the anti-spam. It's probably what most people have, like iron ports or, something like that. But we always sent to APWG as well, the anti-phishing working group. It's kind of a consortium. I also send it over to, US CERT. We send it over to, there's an anti-phishing relay group in Google that's pretty active, and they're bro users, and it's formatted in a way where you just ingest in a bro. You can just send them to any list that you can, because you want it to be stopped, and you're helping other organizations. Because what else are you going to do with this data? Then you can add URLs. We'd add them to our AV products. They had a built-in client side on the AV product that you'd add them into your firewall, or it was a anti-phishing web proxy is what they called it, or whatever. But you can just add it to that, or you just have a static list that then I'll show you what we can do with those going forward. So this is kind of the assumed what you need for a phishing for PPR Tee to work. This isn't a client base. This is usually will be basically someone from the IR team or the email team, depending on how your organization's structured. Maybe you're both. Maybe you're the one person, or maybe you just have two of you and you do everything. That's great. More of my hats off to you. But you basically have to have access to whatever that mailbox is. And usually what I do is I'm a Windows guy. I'm always going to be a Windows guy. I can mess around with Bash, but I'd rather just stick with PowerShell and .NET. But so you have to have access to that mailbox. And what I did was just actually version 2 of PPR Tee, and I'll give it a spoiler now. Well, actually, it'll hook into your mailbox, into your Outlook client, but for that specific mailbox. I have it working on mine, but then I tried it on a buddy's, and it didn't. So I got to work out what the heck's going on there. But for right now, so I just we take all the messages that we receive on a daily basis or whatever, and just drop them on a folder. It can be a network share, it can be wherever. And so you're just basically making a copy of a .msg file. Then we kind of ran it. I ran it both on my workstation and on just a Windows server. We just have a scheduled task, kind of just running on that folder. But you have to have Microsoft Outlook. That's kind of just a prerequisite. I'm using some of the COM objects, unless anyone used Redemption at all. Nope. All right. Redemption's another COM object DLL package that's basically someone made COM object for Outlook, way cooler and way more dangerous. And I'm working on the compatibility for that as well. But so you have a network connection because we're calling some APIs. We're doing some grabbing some data, from the web. So you have to have a network connection. Version 2. Again, I'm sorry, I'm leaving I'm giving all of this stuff. It's next version. SQL Server. So I already have the tables that are, it's going to actually build the database in tables. So you just point it at an SQL Server, and it'll store all the data that we're going to talk about into an SQL database that you can use for other things and other neat side projects. So PPR Tee was developed. What I really needed was basically I was dealing with repeated phishing attacks, and we had multiple attack vectors, but we couldn't identify if they were the same people or not. And I'm not going to tell you that this is going to identify like the actual actors of doing this, but it just helps to show them that you actually have some defense against this ongoing battle. One of the big reasons was internal procedures. You know, we had political battles just like everybody else. We had responsibilities. No, it's not my fault. No, it's the exchange team. No, it's the help. No. So I was just kind of sick of that, and so I just was like, well, screw it. I'll just take it over and just do it. And A, it's nothing off my back, and B, hopefully someone else will find it useful. So again, I wanted that rapid response. We wanted to automatically send notifications. And what else? Just keep that in the back of your mind for right now. What else could we use this data for? And that little logo was one of those free ones. So if you've seen it before, yeah, I figured I needed something. One of the cool things with PPR Tee is everyone use Whois right now. You use it pretty regularly, kind of, yeah. Whois is dead. It's still around, don't get me wrong, but it's going to the wayside. RDAP is now the new protocol. It was, I think, ratified by ICANN and all the major Whois providers last year, I think, or it's still in RFC. I don't know. It's close, but it's a registration data access protocol. It's supposed to be better formatting, better access to that data. Do you all remember, this was a thing on like Reddit or somewhere about RDAP, or them trying to force registration, and people didn't like that? Do you remember that at all? That's kind of part of where RDAP was going. I don't know if that'll get passed, but basically it was just a better format of data, and it's easier to read by any script, function, website, other service. But I'll show you a little bit later that that's kind of the case and kind of not. So PPR Tee, I kind of made it a modular design. That means that you can use individual functions for just your own purpose. So if you don't want to use the whole thing, like we have one, and I'll show you an example, but get URL from message. It'll just scrape all your messages and get the URL parsed out for you in plain text. If you don't want to do anything with that, then that's fine. But I wanted to design it in such a way that you could maybe, use it for something else that you wanted in your network. If you wanted to use it for another script or another service, then it's all right there. It basically just looks at a string of data, and it'll just pull out URLs from it. So you can just throw a Word doc in there, and it'll just pull them out. There is the extra piece of extracting attachments. So it'll actually find that if a .msg has any sort of attachment that's not an MSG, that's not another message. If it is, it'll just kind of recursively go through and check all the attachments. But you can actually take those and it'll hash them, check them against VirusTotal. And if VirusTotal has seen it before, then it'll actually ask you if you want to upload it to VirusTotal to have them checked. So I'll go through that. I have to give a big shout out to anyone's ever used Posh VirusTotal? It's a GitHub project. I think his handle is Dark Operator. I'm using most of his because he already built it, and why not? I didn't have to. So, but there's some pieces in PPR Tee that will basically ask you to download. Like there's a prereq check type of thing. So we gathered data about these messages. We scrape the URLs. We find their registered abuse contact, point of contact address. We send a notification to them and to anyone else that we choose to. If you want to maybe send it to your network team, or here's the URL, here's the IP I want you to block, you can do that. We also create some maps, some visualization that's really good for upper management. I hate to say. But, I mean, it visualizes a lot of data, especially when you're looking at 10 or 20,000 phishing emails and you can actually visualize where maybe some of the headers are coming from. Then you can actually see some interesting data. But then, as in I talked earlier, store in the SQL database. It's almost done. I've been traveling since like last Sunday, so I'm ready to go home and I haven't worked on it at all. But as you can see, Aaron, RIPE, AFRINIC, APNIC, and LACNIC are all checked for their correct IP space that they're assigned to. Here are all the major commandlets. I'll say public. Created this module in such a way where we have public and private. Public means that you can use any of them. The private ones are helper functions, basically. They're just there for extra back-end support, and so you can use them, but you don't really need to. They're just like defining objects and things like that. So we have Invoke Phishing Response, which is the big one. That kind of takes all of the pieces that you see there and wraps them up into one package, and it just kind of, hey, send this message, and it'll just kind of go. I have demos and videos and stuff, so how am I doing? Okay, cool. Here's a video. So this is a new message object. What this means is that what we're going to do is we can just create an entire object of all your messages that are pointed at a folder, and you get some really cool data. And I'll just run through this, and then I may pause it, and so on and so forth. Hopefully it works. Doesn't crash me. So right now I downloaded it from GitHub and I'm importing it. You use a built-in function called, can you see that? Oh. Can you see that? Okay. Okay. Cool. Man. So yeah, we're importing the import module as a built-in commandlet, and we're just importing it to the file path where the PSM1 file is. And it's just the same name as the folder. So it's imported. Then what I'm going to do is actually display some of the public commandlets that I was talking about earlier. Private won't inherently by default, because of the way I've imported them, won't display. But you're able to kind of view all those functions just right into PowerShell. Then I'm actually going to... Oh, that's the next video. Yeah, see? I'm tired. So you have new message object. What it's going to do is you just point it at a dot star, like a folder path star.msg, and it's just all attachments or whatever in that folder. They have a MSG file format or extension. We'll actually just pull in and they'll just calculate and grab a whole bunch of data from it. We have two different options. Basically, we can do full details, so that's just the default full data, or you can actually go through and select individually by using a switch parameter is what we call it. So you can say, oh, I want the subject, I want the body, but I don't give a crap about any of this other stuff, or I just want the header, so you just put a dash header in there. So it just kind of all depends on how you want to use it. Again, trying to make it a little bit modular so you can use it for other cases, as you'll see. Here was the other video. I forgot I broke them apart. This, I'm just creating a default variable, and I'm just making an array. I do that by default. That's just inherently how it's a hash table. But I'm doing it just for my own sanity, because I always use the same names, and I'm clearing it up. But I pointed at the messages. And then, yeah, you don't have to provide a .industry, but we'll talk about that. It'll go through, and I pointed at a log path, and what it's doing is it's actually going through and just collecting some information about that, and it'll return that data into that variable. Then now, once you actually have that variable, you can see there's a count of 4. So there are only 4 messages in there right now that I'm playing with. By default, you have, I'm going to pause that right there. So by default, you have just the displayed for you, because I didn't want to junk up my screen, is the full name of that message. So basically the subject and the full path of that message. And then you also have the header displayed. And I'll show you that you can actually just format, it's called it's basically a format table, and it'll actually show you the detail. Sorry, I gotta stop that. So that is actually, I'm calling, anyone use, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. Yep, definitely. Yeah. No, that's the phase 2. Again, I can do mine, and I've done others, but working with every mailbox and how it's configured, because somebody might have like 7 mailboxes attached to their inbox, and you have, the way the COM objects are structured, or you have to point at a pointer that they're not very nice. And so I can get it with mine, but I'm trying to make it in a way where I can just say, hey, you don't have to worry about it. Type of thing. So anyone used to, like, I should have asked this, who's used to PowerShell, like, that uses it every day? Yeah? All right, cool. So with PowerShell, with every object, everything in a PowerShell is an object. So if you don't know that, it's an object. So what that means is that you have methods, which methods are, you put some, you put some data towards, let's say you want to calculate pi. That's a tough one. You just want to calculate something, like how many car doors are on a car. But you always know that it's going to be 2 or 4, right? But you want to pass a parameter to that method and say, oh, it's 1, but really it's 2 or 4. It's just kind of a way to have a constant procedure for the data that you want to ingest into it. You can make your own, you can do all this stuff, but that's going to go to like C# and .NET. But everything has a method, let's just say everything has a method. Then everything has a property, and properties are just like an attribute. It's like an AD when you look at your first name, your last name. All those are properties, and there's properties of that object. And when you talk about object, you mean that person. So you have their manager, you have all the department, everything. So you have these properties, and you dot. So when you call an object and you say dot, and then whatever the property name is, that'll actually just display that data. Typically, again, there's a lot of caveats to this, but typically, yeah, if you dot sort or you add or target that property, it'll display that data. That's what I'm doing here, is that I'm actually displaying a property called header, and it's just displaying all of them. But it's an array of 4 messages. So I'll show you. This is one way that you could do it. There's a for each loops and all that, but I'm just going to show you that you're going to access a specific message in an array. So I'm just kind of scrolling around there, just so you can see them all. Then I'm going to go back, and I'm actually going to point at the second message, because everything starts with a 0. 1 would be the second object, 2 would be the third, 3 would be the fourth. Now I'm actually going to pipe and display all of them. So you can see we have the full name and then the header value. And it's the full email headers that are parsed out. Then we're actually going to go through, and I'm going to pipe and show you all of those are the public ones that are by default shown. This is what's actually in the all the properties of that message, of each message that you have. Some of this is like actions, BCC, CC field, when was it last open, when was it last read, and some other data that's pretty cool, like attachments. If it was set, flag was set for high priority or whatever, you know that in Outlook you have that priority message. Yeah, you can look at all that data, and it has it for every message that you're processing. So, I think that kind of video, I'm going to go through it. Yeah, so we have permissions. We have HTML body versus the actual body. We have a MAPI object. We have, I don't know if anyone uses mileage. No. Sent on behalf, size, the total size of that message, which is really useful information. So this is kind of again a synopsis of what we went over. Basically, what I'm doing is creating that message object, creating a new one. Then I'm actually going to pass it into that invoke phishing response, and that is actually going to go and do. It's gonna basically take that message for each individual one, scrape the URL out of the message. It will then do a reverse DNS lookup and find the IP address of that hosting provider. Use basically the first octet, which is assigned by ICANN to whoever the who is. Go to a who is and say, hey, give me the registration data that is associated with that. Who owns this IP space? And then we're going to grab that data back. And if there's 6 or 7, there's 100, whatever, we'll get those email addresses and just send off emails and just say, hey, shut this site down. And we kind of keep track of it a little bit. So here's Invoke Phishing Response. It's kind of taking all the pieces and really boiling them into, a handful. We have to have, so that's, the other thing I didn't mention is that that new message object is its own object type. I've created a standard kind of object type that it basically shows that the format of that message has to be originated from that function to get moved on into this main function because it needs certain parameters, and I've kind of verified that in the new message object function. So we have the virus total. The only thing that you have to have is the virus total API key. It's free. You could just go like free virus total API key. You just have to sign up for an account, and they just give you an API key, and then you just pass it into that parameter, and then that's really all you have to do. You have to provide, if you choose to use the virus total side, you have to choose if you want to extract that attachment, and if you choose to extract it, then you have to provide both a save location, so where you want those attachments to be saved, and the API key you want to use to do all the processing against virus total. You have the email, so that typically you just need the from. You have subject. You can, by default, just use the subject of the original message as the new message's subject. But you could also specify a body. If not, it'll just paste the link in there and use whatever defaults you have in your Outlook client. You can do body as HTML. It's stupid. You don't have to worry about it, but it's an option. So, it's something that send mail message for PowerShell has. It's not, unless you wanted to make it a fancy email, that's really the only reason you would use it. Credential, so you have to provide, whatever mail server, you're trying to access, you have to authenticate to. You have to provide a credential. And then you can send additional notifications. I actually don't have on there, and I should. There's an SMTP server command switch for email that you have to provide. By default, there's a variable it's a local variable inside PowerShell, like PS version table or something like that. There's actually one for SMTP email server. It's called $PS SMTP email server. It's this long default variable. Usually that's filled out, so you don't have to provide it, but if it isn't, it'll actually tell you saying, hey, you need to provide an SMTP. So that would be like smtp.office365.com or smtp.yourexchange. Additional notifications, you can actually pass in other email addresses that you want to send to. And then there's actually another hidden one, and if anyone wants to know about it, for a couple special groups that I work, not that I work with, but the anti-phishing Google Relay group, they need a specialized format, and I have functions that basically format the body of that message in the correct way. But we also create maps, and so you can choose the all received from IPs, and I'll explain what that means. First received from IP and first received from IP heat map. So here's kind of Invoke IR, or Invoke phishing response live. So I'm creating that variable and then setting whatever the return data will be. Oh yeah, I forgot. I should have said this. I added this today because someone told me I should, and so that's why it's a different screen. And I'm printing that out because of my own sanity to make sure it worked when I was recording the video. It doesn't do that by default. So response. Now we have each one of these are individual objects. So they're an object within an object within an object within an object. Does that make sense? It's just basically layered properties that you can call, and they have other hidden data. See those scrolly brackets where it says notification, subject to, body? Those are the property names, but it's within that object of notification. This kind of explains the video. Shows a little bit of that. So when I click on, I don't know if did you see that? Let's go back. So I did response, my mistyping, .abuse. So I'm accessing the abuse object. And so I have absolute URI. I have the URL authority. I have some, the URL info, the IP, abuse contact, and then so on and so forth. I mean, it's then we have the, what is it? Response notification. Again, that shows the subject to, I don't know why. Please excuse that demo. I think it's the crappy wireless. I mean, the great wireless, because it actually says no POC. So excuse that, but it does return data. And then you response.msg. Again, that message object we created earlier is just kind of put back into that response object. And so we have, again, the full data. What was that last one? Yeah, response.url. So we actually have just, some basic URL authorities for specific phishing emails. And what else did we show? I did this on my lunch break, so I thought it was good. All right, so basically we just have all this data now that we can use for other things. And you can pipe that data to other functions, to other users. I'm going to show you extract message attachment. I'm not actually going to show you a video. I kind of squared down some of the videos. But we have a message object that you can just pipe in. So if you just wanted a message object and just have a whole bunch of emails and you wanted to extract message attachments, you can just call it and do that. And that's all you have to do. I mean, I try to make it as modular as possible. We have the full details. Again, if you just want the file hash, you can just specify that. I want to extract this attachment and the file hash. I don't want to do anything else. You can do that. There's some of the unique ones. MIME type. It can show some data. Just depends on how it was, how your exchange handles it. If it was only an internal to internal, you're probably going to have more data about that. That's real data. If it was coming from another SMTP relay, you're probably not. But The attach method, that's actually, again, for internal, but you can actually see how they attached it. They're number codes. They're 1 and 2, and I can go up to 4. But it shows that the attachment was either drag or copied or whatever in that client. So you have invoke VT attachment. You actually have you pass it in an attachment hash, and it'll use posh virus total. So you have to have the attachment hash and that API key, and it will check virus total. Say hey, it'll pop up with a warning and say a little dialog box, and it'll say hey, virus total doesn't know that this exists. Do you want to upload it? And you click yes, and it'll upload the virus total. Then it'll actually pull down a kind of a report, but it hasn't been fully processed by then. But it will have that data. Then you can just pull in, and if it has been identified, it'll actually download the entire virus total report. All the details, basically. Here's some of the code of actually what it's doing. So again, I go in. Sorry, I'm going to look at this instead of staring over here. But you can actually go in and it'll download and import virus total. Basically, it'll check to see if you already have it installed. If you don't, what that test path is, I guess I could make it a little easier. There's another environmental path that I could add after just looking at that. But so it'll actually prompt you and says, you must have posh virus total, blah, 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 do you want to download it? And it'll actually open up IE and pass you through that site and say, hey, download this. It'll give you the URL and all that. So it's just kind of an easy way to download it. If it does, if it already has posh virus total, then you're good. It'll just go through and, yeah. Then for each hash, so you pass in, let's say, an array of hashes, a big list. It'll actually check virus total, find with your hash, if the response code is 1, which is A-OK in virus total's world. It will, following has been blah, 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 do you want to download? Yeah. And we create an object back of that hash, the submission, that status, VT file report, and the results. Results will always be null because we didn't upload anything. This is the second part of it. If that code was 0, then we'll actually submit it. It'll prompt and ask you. If you click yes, that means true, and it'll go on through and actually submit it and also get the file report. I do that just for sanity more than anything. And hash not found, and we return that object, basically. So it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's luckily someone already built virus total, posh virus total, so I don't have to deal with it. But it's pretty straightforward. So we get URL from message. This is one I think I made a little video. So this one I think that you'll maybe use. This is one I used a lot when I was starting it out. So we have to pass it in a message object, and then. Oh, crap. So I'm calling just get URL from message. I'm pointing, can you see that? Pointing that message object, and then I'll just pass it a log file. Or log path, whatever. I always use the same one, because I just want one log, I don't want 100. And so right there, again, it scans through, and it actually pulled out all obfuscated URLs and placed them right there. These were dumb emails. The hardest part of this is for me, because I send notifications so much, I cannot find good phishing emails that are still live, because they shut them down too quick. I do work for a phishing company, but I don't deal with that on a normal basis anymore, so it's kind of a hard. I try to ask my buddies, like, hey, can you give me some? But they don't. Yeah, they can't. NDAs and all. So it's just kind of a quick way to pass along that URL, or to get. Of course, I did that. To get that message, the URLs from those messages. Everything was going okay. So this is the new PPR Tee Abuse Context object. It's a really long name. This is the main talking to who is. So you pass it a URL. It'll do the reverse DNS lookup. It'll get the IP address. It'll check who is. Blah, blah, blah. So if you just wanted to do that, then it's all right there. And if you look at the code, it'll actually have individual other functions that it's calling. So you can just use that. Like if you just wanted to get the IP address, or if you just wanted to look for something on Aaron or write, then you can do that. Here's a kind of this is a part of that new PPR Tee abuse object. This is checking write. And I wanted to show this just because it's actually pretty easy to do. I mean, if you look, all the other stuff above where it says abuse contact equals invoke rest method, it's just like comments and just stuff. You know, it's not really that tough. So invoke rest method is a built-in PowerShell module, and you just have to point it at a URI, uniform resource identifier. But you just point it at it, and I pass in an IP address variable to that URL path, and it returns a JSON object, which, well, it can return anything, but it usually will just return a JSON object, and then you just kind of dots. Again, think of a JSON like an XML, where you have the root node, and then you have mom, dad, blah, 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 and you have like a lineage, you know, and they keep going down. You just dot source into each layer. If you want it on that layer, you can loop through. It's really pretty straightforward. And if anyone has not messed with Invoke Rest method, it is amazing. It's super easy. There's like Posh Star Wars that just queries Star Wars databases, and like it's all using web API. It's really, really easy to use. So I just wanted to share that. So once we actually have that result, then I just return it. I could have just returned it right there, but I like to save things into a variable, and it's not resource intensive. So here is another one, but this is for Aaron. This is where I'm highlighting another piece. This is where it gets a little bit weird because of RDAP. I was telling you earlier that RDAP's not very, it's supposed to be a standard, but there's still multiple ways that people are interpreting that standard, so it's really, really hard. So the top one that's highlighted where it says handle, raw entities, blah, blah, blah. vCard array is a virtual contact card, is what these who is and companies are doing. And so the top one works for certain situations, and the bottom one that's not highlighted works for certain situations. So this is where it's getting a little weird, and I kind of just commented out right there. But I like the bottom one. It's more accurate. I'm working on other ones, but it's just the data is formatted in such a weird way that it's hard to work every single time, but it's getting close. So we actually are just invoking that ref method, again, looking at the entity handle. Then we're actually expanding, and there's a sync root. I'm trying not to go too much in the weed, but we actually just get the vCard data, and then I'm actually I'm taking all of it as a big string and just regexing because it's way easy. And I'm regexing, finding anything that resembles something at something, whatever dot something. And it just finds those email addresses, and I can just parse them out into an array, and now I have just a whole bunch of messages. That's the easiest, because of the formatting right now. The one above, it actually will do a handle. Handle is like an entity. Again, it takes the parent's node, as you can see up there, that handle, finds its entities, finds its handle, then does another query at that URL with the handle address. The names on this crap is like, it's horrible. I don't know who is like, oh yeah, let's just call it a handle or an entity. Like, what the hell does that mean? Like, I don't know. So I just wanted to show that code. It gets a little more complicated, but it's really not too bad. So here's get absolute URI. You take in a URL object from that get URL from message, and then it will check if the URL is alive. It'll get the response back. So the good thing about that is that the next bullet where it says recursively expand, shorten URLs. Sorry, I know I'm kind of cutting close here. But it'll actually return the original URL, an encoded URL, an absolute URL, which means the absolute authority that responded back to that, and the URL authority, which is the full subdomain. So if it was, email verification form.weebly.com, it would be weebly.com. But it returns all that data, and so then you can use that for whatever the heck you want. You can throw it at whatever. I use it for responding to phishing, but I have to speed up, so that's it. So here's one of the responses from Invoke Phishing. This is an actual email that'll be sent to whatever that phishing email is. It has it as an attachment. That's an option. And so I just say, hey, received this phishing attempt. Please shut it down. Hey, and also give us some logs if you don't mind. That works about like 3% of the time. But, some companies are just cool, or maybe they're not cool, but they'll give you some data. They'll point you in the right direction. Here's a second one. It's actually a different email. It doesn't look like it, but because they had two different contacts, it actually sent both messages. I don't know what that. Okay, so here's another one to. We did access at Ironport, we did US CERT, and a few others, and it just kind of formatted in a different way. And this is, again, that anti-phishing email reply group on Google, and it has a special format, so I have a function just for that. This is the geolocation mapping. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to just kind of run through this. We have 3 different maps, and I'll show you what those look like. This is the overall how it's processing messages. So I'm displaying output the headers just because I like to know something's actually happening. But we have the actual maps. So I'll close out of here and show you. This is the first map that I kind of generated. This is what we call a no internet. So it still relies on internet because it's Google and you have Google Maps. So, but it has the raw code. This is actually a polyline. What that means is every received from header in that message from start to bottom to top will actually be plotted and geolocated on a map. It gets a little noisy though because some of those hops can be, obviously they can be changed and and all that. And same with the first header. But it's especially when you have 20,000 on there, you can't tell anything. It's just bad. Oh, this is the second map, which is way more useful. I'm not going to zoom out because the internet is off. But as you can see, those are the first received from headers of every single message that I kind of ran through on this test. If I actually select one of these, let's click here. It actually brings up a pop-up, and it's on every single one of them. That'll actually show you the subject, receive time, sender email address, sender SMTP, and the actual phishing URL. I have code, thanks to one of my buddies, that I'm actually going to make it tabular on that dropout, and it'll display the header, the actual image of the attachment, and some other data in there as well. But I just found that like at Circle CityCon last week, so yeah, that'll be there probably by the end of the week. And this is the last map. It's basically the same data as the other, but it actually shows you more of just a different view of a heat radius. I can't really show this. I might be able to, but it will actually, you can change the gradient. So that means you can change the color. It'll just inverse of itself. It's like a blue and a red and an orange and a red or whatever. But you can also change the radius. So based on if you zoom out, you can see the impact. And based on intensity is calculated by number of phishing emails in that location. So that's kind of that was the maps. I can show you briefly the code. Do we have 2 minutes? No. Okay, cool. If anyone wants to know anything else, I will actually skip ahead. Those are some of the resources. I will like hand out my slides. They'll be at, I'll just put them on my blog. You don't have to go. You can hook me up on Twitter or whatever. It's MS administrator, so Microsoft, like MS, like Microsoft administrator.com. And I'll post them up there like on a post like right after here. But really where's it at? Also the code, GitHub, MS administrator, and then I have a bunch of other PowerShell stuff. I don't know if anyone uses Qualys Guard or anything like that. I had some stuff like that I had to do. It's a lot of just my own fun stuff. So yeah, hit me up and we can talk afterwards. Thank you all. Appreciate it.